I think God directs and leads. And, I think for me, just know that, okay, I feel very fortunate to do what I do and very grateful and, just want to, stay true to that original intent of ministry with what we do at VeggieTales.
He's one of the creators of VeggieTales, and he's the voice of Larry the Cucumber. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of First Person. I'm Wayne Shepherd. My guest today is the talented Mike Nawrocki. We'll begin getting to know Mike in just a few moments, but first, let me remind you to visit us online at firstpersoninterview.com. We've made a few improvements to the website to serve you better, so I hope you'll take a minute to go to firstpersoninterview.com. You'll find a list of past and future guests and an archive of past interviews. firstpersoninterview.com. We're also found on Facebook at facebook.com/firstpersoninterview. Today's guest, Mike Nawrocki, is the co-founder, along with Phil Vischer, of the children's animated video series VeggieTales. Today, Mike is the executive vice president of Big Idea Entertainment, writing and directing both movies and videos. But as talent, he still voices several of the characters, including, famously I might add, Larry the Cucumber. As a matter of fact, when we sat down to talk in the Big Idea offices near Nashville, I wasn't quite sure at first who I was talking with, Mike or his alter ego.
Well, the alter ego would be a cucumber. So if he's not pitch shifted, he doesn't sound quite like a cucumber, but
pretty
Larry
close.
The cucumber. There
pretty
you go.
Close. Yeah, pretty close. We do a little tweaking.
Mike, welcome to First Person.
Thanks, Wayne. It's a pleasure to be with you.
It's always nice to see you and hear how creative you are and doing what you do. Tell me about Big Idea these days.
Wow, we're making VeggieTales. We do every year about 3 releases, 3 original 45-minute releases.
So VeggieTales is still your life?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm, making the veggies, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week plus, But it's just really, it's so much fun. I mean, I consider myself so blessed to be able to tell stories and, especially stories that remind kids that God made them special and He loves them very much. From a creative standpoint, the show is structured in a way where, we've got this ensemble cast of vegetables that can assume any identity in any point in time in history, and just dress them up differently, and they're different, Mr. Potato Head clothes, and then set off on a new story. So we're able to tell a variety of different stories, but all with that core biblical value. And I just feel so blessed to be able to continue to do that.
The VeggieTales story is well known. Phil Vischer is still working with you as a consultant, I understand, in some ways?
Yeah. Well, Phil still does all his voices. Phil does probably about 10 voices for Veggie. So we're working with Phil. I just saw Phil a couple days ago, actually. Yeah. So yeah, he's going strong with Veggie still.
Mm-hmm. But it's good to know that it still is, you're still putting out the good stuff with the same heart for kids that you always did, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've come so far in 18 years and have experienced so many up and downs. And I, when the company went through bankruptcy back in 2002, I would have never imagined, God continuing to use it.
It looked like it was over.
Didn't it? Yeah, it looked like it was over. And, I just feel, really blessed and fortunate that we've been able to continue. And, just with, we're at the point now where I'm meeting parents who were children when VeggieTales first came out.
That's
so
humbling.
It is. So I'm feeling kind of old, but just to know that VeggieTales has touched their life in such a way that they're now showing it to their kids, and to talk to these kids who many of them haven't seen the old shows. They're referencing all the new stuff, and so that makes me feel really great.
Mike, I want to talk more about VeggieTales today, but take me back to your start in all of this. Mm-hmm. How did you know that this is what you needed to be doing in life, and how did that happen? And just tell me that story.
Yeah, well, it took me a while to get to know that this is what I was supposed to be doing. I came to know Christ when I was 11 years old, actually watching Billy Graham on TV.
Truly.
In fact, I just got off a call. They're doing a Chicken Soup for the Soul book, and they interviewed me for that. And it was such a huge honor because Billy Graham touched my life in such amazing ways, and starting when I was 11. Mm-hmm. And so I came to know Christ when I was 11. And became involved in denomination. Our whole family became involved in the Christian and Missionary Alliance denomination.
Yeah, sure, I know it well. Yeah,
where missions were really emphasized. And I remember going to a youth conference while I was in high school and going forward and dedicating my life to ministry. And at the time, I kind of just had to take cues from what I knew. I loved drama, and I was in every church drama, that I could get my hands on, and I loved singing, and I would write these goofy songs all the time to make my friends laugh. But just in terms of what I could do for, a ministry and a living,
sure.
That didn't even cross my mind.
No, you're not thinking of that as a kid.
Yeah, I'm not thinking. And some people do. I mean, I know Phil grew up, he wanted to be a filmmaker, straight away. That's what he wanted to do. But for me, my mom was a nurse, my dad was an engineer, my older brother was a chemistry major. So the pieces that I could put together, to me, that looked like, oh, well, yeah, I could be a doctor, and I could definitely serve God being a doctor, as a missionary doctor. And so that's what that looked like to me then. And so I headed off to a denominational college. At the time, it was called St. Paul Bible College. It's now called Crown College. To take some Bible classes and some other electives, with the purpose of then transferring over to a school where I could do my pre-med and biology major. Every student going into that school had to do a student ministry, and it was a required student ministry. And I had been involved in children's ministry, and I'd done some puppeting, and they had a puppet team. So I thought, hey, I'll go out for the puppet team. So it's a great way to meet girls. So those cool guys on the puppet
right through
team.
that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the first day on puppet team, I met Phil. He'd also been involved in puppetry, and we just really hit it off creatively right away. We just started writing stuff, and we had both grown up with big Monty Python fans, and
So you had
Muppet
that kind
fans.
of zany look at things, right?
Absolutely. And so we'd write our own shows and then travel around with the team performing, and we'd often find that the adults in the back of the room were laughing harder than the kids in the front of the room. But we just had so much fun doing it, had such a great creative chemistry, and became really great friends. And so we thought, well, let's do this. I'm going into medicine, you're going into film. We had both only planned on going to this college for a year or two. Let's move out to Los Angeles, and you go to film school, I'll go to med school, and it'll be great. So that's what the plan was. And so after the first year and a half, we both failed chapel and were asked to leave. so it was nothing more than just
Wait a minute, all you had to do was show up.
All you had to do is show up at chapel,
and you failed that.
I failed that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I scheduled my first.
I had a similar experience, so I know what you're talking about.
I scheduled my first class. My mistake was scheduling my first class until after chapel, the hour after chapel. So I would just sleep in every day and then go to my first class, knowing that I wasn't going to come back the next semester.
God had a wonderful plan for your life.
That's right. They were kind enough after a number of years to invite Phil and I back, to the college.
Oh, really?
To give us an award.
Oh, you were a distinguished alumni.
A distinguished award. Yeah. And after being kicked out of the school,
it's amazing how the memory sort of fades when when somebody rises in visibility, right?
Oh, but they were so lovely about it, and it was called the Professional Award, and it was given to us in chapel. So I just remember going up to the podium in chapel. My first words were in my Larry the Cucumber voice.
So this is what chapel looks like.
And evidently the word had spread, and everybody thought that was very funny. So, but
what a moment!
Yeah, but it was a wonderful school. Actually, my niece is at that school right now.
So
where was I?
Plan B.
Plan B. Yes.
You don't go to Los Angeles?
No, we didn't go to Los Angeles because we went both back to our own hometowns. My parents were in Denver. His parents were in the Chicago area. And Phil actually landed a job as an intern at a video post house in the Chicago area, and thought, well, this is kind of what I want to do with my life. I think I'm going to stay here and do this. And so I was roommateless all of a sudden. And actually, at the time, it was a very difficult time for me because my parents were going through a divorce. And I just kind of knew that I needed to get out of the house. I was, had been in college a year and a half, and, that turmoil was going on. And I thought, you know what? I could stay around here and go to college, but I think I just need to. I just felt like, okay, I need to go, and so I started looking around the Chicago area for med schools, and there's plenty. There's plenty of, and so I ended up putting my eye on the University of Illinois Chicago, which had a great pre-med, and the med school connected with Cook County Hospital, which is one of the busiest emergency rooms in the country, and thought that'd be a great place to learn how to be a missionary doctor. And so I moved out to Chicago, and was working to establish residency. Ended up landing a job at the same place Phil was working. I had run sound for my brother's band and had toured with the Continental Singers as a sound tech just out of college. And so I had some technical background, I thought, and kind of landed a job just with those skills duplicating videotapes. So as I went through my undergraduate, I was working, to put my way through school and just getting to know this world of video post-production. And Phil, we were both computer guys, and Phil kind of became the designated guy for our company when they bought their first 3D computer system. And if you remember the Dire Straits video, Money for Nothing, the Bosch FGS 4000, I think was the title. That was the computer system that Dire Straits did this video with. So our company bought one of those. And at the time, nobody knew how to do computer animation. It was so new.
Of course, looking back at it now, it looks primitive, doesn't it?
Oh, it looks so primitive. You just look at that. It's so primitive. And even going back and looking at the early versions of VeggieTales, like, yep, that was pretty primitive. But so we were just kind of just at the right place at the right time historically, and where technology was, and because we had done so much writing together, and we had access to all this equipment, we just started to think, okay, well, what could we do with this? And we had an idea. Well, we could do like a live variety show, the Phil and Mike show, or something. But then started to think, well, wait a minute, with this with computers and with animation, we can actually kind of do what we did with puppets, but with animation. So we did that, but all this time for me, I'm just kind of, this is great. I love it. I'm having a great time doing it. I'm making enough money working at this facility to pay my way through school in combination with student loans. But I'm just passing through. I'm going to be a missionary doctor. So I ended up, I graduated with my undergraduate, applied to the Peace Corps. And my plan was to go teach biology in Africa for 2 years and then come back and go to med school. I was accepted into Peace Corps. And kind of parallel with that, we had just been talking about doing a show and maybe using really simple characters with no limbs and no hair and no clothes. And we did.
That sounds like they'd be very successful.
Exactly. And trying to sell it. And Phil was out there trying to pitch it. And, and we got those blank stares of, okay, we want to tell Bible stories with vegetables. And, people don't want to give you a lot of money when you tell them that angle.
We'll continue talking with Mike Nawrocki of VeggieTales fame coming up today here on First Person. Next time on First Person, we'll meet Curry Womack of the Nashville Rescue Mission.
Every time I think I figured out the boundaries that God can work within, He blows the doors off of those little boxes that I try to put them in. And I often think that they're pretty good-sized boxes, but God's grace just totally transforms.
Serving people in the name of Christ. You'll hear the story of Curry Womack next week on First Person. Mike Nawrocki is here in the offices of Big Idea Entertainment, Big Idea Studio. You are the executive vice president, which sounds pretty heady for a cucumber.
Writer, director, cucumber.
But it's great to see you, Mike, and to learn how God has moved and shaped you through life. And you took us up to the point of the creation of VeggieTales with you and Phil. I mean, I know it just blossomed so quickly, didn't it?
Well, it did.
Seemed so quickly to us. I know it was a lot of hard work for you guys.
Well, yeah. And I, kind of just, and it was probably the long version of getting up to that moment of, when I knew this is what I was supposed to do, because I was faced with that decision of, okay, I had thought I was supposed to do this, and I had gone to school for, ultimately becoming a doctor, but yet here was a point where we saw that the funding came through for the first show, and I had that real decision to make of, okay, do I go to Africa literally in 2 months? Do I go to Africa, or do I stay and work on this show? And it was a point in my life where I really had to search out, those who knew me and really go to God in prayer and just say, okay, what should I do, and how have you gifted me? And so I eventually came to the conclusion that this is where God wanted me. But it would have been even up to that point, I just didn't know that that's where I was going to be heading.
People had to kind of think you were crazy, though. Was it accepted by your family and others that suddenly this shift was happening? You weren't going to be a missionary doctor. You're going to be a what?
A cucumber? Yeah, some sort of a vegetable. I don't know. Yeah, it was so funny because I almost, my mom, when I graduated, she got me a leather-bound edition of Grey's Anatomy, and it wasn't a cheap book, I remember that book itself almost guilted me into not doing it. But my parents were very supportive in it, because I had put myself through school, I didn't feel kind of that guilt that a lot of kids may have whose parents' money, the payback. But they were very supportive, and then and just just wanted me to thrive and be happy, and so they were very supportive of me.
Yeah. When you create the way you do now with Big Idea, with VeggieTales, what's going on? What's the process? What do you want to happen in kids?
Yeah.
Why do you do what you do?
Well, I think, our company mission is to enhance the moral and spiritual fabric of society through creative media. So that's kind of the big picture of wanting to tell stories that point kids to God, that remind kids that God made them special, He loves them very much, and to give parents a resource to pass on biblical values to their kids. So that's kind of what's behind the stories that we tell. And a lot of times we'll approach a story where we look at a Bible story and say, "Oh, it'd be wonderful to tell this particular Bible story. What's the key lesson in it? How do we pull that out in a way that's meaningful for a child?" Other times it's okay. Well, let's look at a topic like selfishness, or sharing, the opposite of that, or thankfulness, and how do we how can we tell a story that really highlights that, but always using Scripture as the authority for that lesson, and then that kind of setting that up. Bob and Larry will come on the show and receive a in the early days a letter from a child, and then it became an email, and now it's a video message.
Okay.
So the video will come up on QWERTY with a problem that they're having in their life, and the answer for that question will come in the form of a story, and then Bob and Larry come back on and wrap it up, and then QWERTY comes up with a verse that kind of is the authority for all of that. So just knowing that, wanting to tell stories from a biblical worldview, and their story has such a powerful impact on kids, and our culture is saturated with story, and we want to approach it from the point of view that yes, behind our story. Behind the stories that we tell is the assumption of creation, fall, and redemption, and that's how we're going to approach the stories that we tell.
Have kids changed from your start to where you are today? And if so, how are you adapting?
Oh, wow. Well, technology has certainly advanced. I mean, we could not. We talked about just the look of VeggieTales at the beginning. We couldn't get away with that now.
But I mean, kids are used to using iPads now. I mean, little toddlers are using iPads.
Oh yeah.
They pick up a book and they expect to be able to swipe their finger across a book the way they do on an iPad.
Oh yeah.
Does that change anything for you guys?
Well, I think at the heart of it, a story is a story. I think people are hardwired for story, so we try to concentrate first on that, and then after that, how can you get different media to deliver that story?
They're two separate things. I understand.
Yeah,
sure.
And so for us, and we've done some iPad VeggieTales storybooks, and we've got some apps, and so we're thinking in that world. But at the heart of that is like, okay, what is a child is going to relate to character, he's going to relate to story first and foremost, and then how can you use technology to best do that?
It'd be easy to get caught up in the techno part of the whole thing,
and
lose the content. You really focus on the content. You really hone the content, don't you? I mean, you test it. You work hard at it.
Yeah, and that's the most challenging and difficult, and the most rewarding part of the job too. Is just because it is telling a good story is hard work. And over the years, we've had, I look at some of the shows and say, oh, we did a great job telling a good story with this show. And other shows, it's like, maybe not so much. That one could have been better. I mean, at the time, we're in love with everything,
of course,
because otherwise, you need that motivation to go through.
Yeah.
But just looking back over it, but we do try to say, okay, how are we going to best communicate this message through these characters in a way that's really engaging, and that is really, really challenging. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I spend the majority of my time focusing on.
So where does that start? Where does a seed idea come from? And I know you're taking stories from Scripture many times.
Yeah.
How do you develop that?
Well, it's not just me. I mean, I work with a number of just really talented people here. From folks in the studio in the development area, Mark Steele, who I work with on development and writing, Brian Roberts, who's a director here also at Big Idea, our producer, Chris Wall, and also our sales and marketing team, because they're the ones that are out there in the field and just saying, knowing the bookstore owners and the folks at Walmart and Kmart and Target, the folks that buy the stuff in, and just keeping a pulse on, okay, what story and what message is going to be meaningful to our audience.
Yeah, so it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
What kind of response do you get from? I mean, you get some from kids, obviously, but parents have got to respond to you guys as well.
Oh, I love that. I mean, it's so much fun for me to go out and just to see, how many parents are big VeggieTales fans, because I know
First of all, they were raised on it, many of them.
they were raised on it, but I'm the same. I'm the parent who has the DVD player in the car in the back, and I've listened to probably more kids movies than I've seen, as I'm driving, as my kids are watching them in the back, and we get a lot of feedback about that with VeggieTales. It's like, oh, I'm just cracking up, I'm driving along and I'm listening to it and just having a great time listening to it as my kids are watching in the back. But for me too, there's VeggieTales have touched kids' lives, in ways that are just really. I mean, when God's word goes out there, it's not going to go out.
It doesn't return void.
It's not going to return void.
Hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's a huge honor to be able to do that, and just to see, to know that God is using us as an instrument to deliver that word to kids.
All right, starting where you started, with puppets and volunteering, and you were headed to Africa, and VeggieTales came along, and now you've spent all these years, and you're still creating every day. Could you have written a better script for your life, Mike?
No, absolutely not. No, I kind of feel like that's the place where I want to be, where I'm just saying, you know what, God, you're in control of this, and if I can surrender my life, my vocation, my future to how you want to use me. Looking back, I could prepare the way that I thought would be best for me, and my heart and my motivation was to serve. So I did what I thought I needed to do, but I may not have gone to a Bible college, knowing that, okay, I want to get some Bible classes out of the way before I go to pre-med, to go be a missionary doctor. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have met Phil. So all these things. I think God just directs and leads, and I think for me, just wanting to say, okay, just use me. And sometimes I struggle even at times with legitimacy. I live in Nashville, where there's so many talented people, just incredibly talented people. And you see some people who are fortunate enough to be able to do it for a living, and some are not. And sometimes it doesn't have to do with talent. It's just for some reason, it just
right
works
place
for
at
some
the right time,
right place at the right
people,
time,
and some people don't make it at all,
and some people, and don't make it at all. And so I don't take that for granted, and just know that, okay, I feel very fortunate to do what I do, and very grateful, and just want to stay true to that original intent of ministry with what we do at VeggieTales.
Mike Nawrocki, who spends his days bringing computer-animated vegetables to life through VeggieTales. Mike has a very unique job, but he sees it as much more than his vocation. It's his life passion to teach biblical values to children, even when it means writing and delivering lines to the cucumber. There's more about Mike and VeggieTales on our website, firstpersoninterview.com. I hope you'll visit us online soon. And if you've missed any portion of today's interview, it's been posted for online listening. You may want to encourage other VeggieTale fans to listen. Go to firstpersoninterview.com. In addition to this week's interview, all previous First Person programs are archived for convenient listening. Plus, there's a schedule of upcoming guests at firstpersoninterview.com. Well, on the same trip that took me to Nashville to interview Mike, I also spent some time at the downtown Nashville Rescue Mission. The mission is involved in incredible ministry, and next week you'll meet Curry Womack, who's devoting his life in service to Christ by assisting those in need. Now, with thanks to my friend and producer Joe Carlson, thank you for listening today. I'm Wayne Shepherd. Join us next week at the same time for First Person.